Hi, good evening. Welcome to our 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. I'm going to mention the Mountain Time Zone, Teresa and Beverly, because that's where I'm located. It's 5 o'clock here in Denver and 4 o'clock in the Pacific Time Zone. Welcome to our webinar tonight. You're in the right place, but your microphones are intentionally on mute. However, we want this program tonight with Teresa and Beverly to be bi-directional. So if you're using Zoom on a PC, you're going to find a Q&A bot on the bottom of your panel. On an iOS device, it's most likely in the top. If you have questions, Teresa's going to moderate this. I'm just a housekeeper, so you don't have to hear me very much tonight, I promise. Right, Teresa?
Absolutely.
And I need to find some better lighting. I kind of look like I'm in Phantom of the Opera here. All right, so let me get started. Tonight's program would not be possible without the support of our partners. I'm going to start by introducing my colleague from Darby Dental, Jeff Daly. So Jeff, if you want to take it away, and if Beverly, you could advance the slide one, that'd be great.
Sure. So thanks everybody so much for making time for today's presentation. We're excited again to partner to help provide today's content. What you may already know about Darby is that we partner with our practices to help keep their dental supply costs down. What a lot of practices are still surprised to learn is that over the past 10 years or so, we've really been focused on building out a suite of services and solutions to help practices meet the challenges that they tell us they face on a daily basis. So one of those services that I just wanted to spotlight today was Darby Techforce. So Darby Techforce provides IT support to dental practices, ranging from simple backup to complete outsourced solutions. Unfortunately, given what's happening in the world today, those services have never been more critical. We seem to hear about a new high-profile ransomware attack or new vulnerabilities on a daily basis. So our team at Techforce partners with practices to do everything possible to help safeguard their networks. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how we can help your practice, definitely feel free to reach out to our team. We'd be happy to take a look at your network, perform a complimentary network analysis, and let you know what vulnerabilities we see, and then discuss steps you may want to take inside of your practice to help remediate those. So that's our quick shameless plug, and I'll toss it back over to you, Jim.
Beverly, can you introduce it? Can you advance one more slide? I don't think we have a QR code from Jeff. Maybe we can put that up at the end. Or Teresa, do you have it on your screen?
I actually just put it up. So if anybody, I apologize for that. If anybody is, can you see that okay?
No, your screen's black. I don't know what happened.
Can you see that?
You have to go to it. Yes, there you go.
There it is. Boom.
There it is. So I apologize. The QR code should have shown up there. So if you are interested in the services that Jeff just outlined, scan that. Go ahead and you can pick up your phone and just take a picture of it, and it'll direct you right to their site, and you will get this free cybersecurity risk assessment, which I don't know if you all listen to my podcast. Nobody told me that, but I just had an IT guy on talking about all of this, the cybersecurity. And the first thing I learned, Jeff, is that they don't like to be called IT guys. So that's it's a whole different topic. But yeah, so for any of you who are interested, please scan that code and avail yourself of this really, really valuable service. And then Beverly, if you want to grab the screen back from me, it will stop my share and you'll go back to your own.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. Ooh, maybe not. Let's see.
She can do it. She can do it.
There we go. I think that might have done it.
You got to just click over to your deck, I think.
Ooh. Nope.
Teresa, why don't you grab it, because you have the whole presentation and we can figure this out.
Let me get to
Thank you.
Screen.
That's
sure,
awesome.
Yeah. Let me get to a different screen. And let's do that. See what happened? I interrupted everybody's flow. Do you see how that works?
Oh, it's okay. I think I just it was
Beverly,
a new trial.
You got to relent control. I think you got to stop sharing. Or Teresa, you got to grab the share.
I can grab it. Okay. But you know what? If you, Jim,
why don't we can do? We got it. I can get it here. We got it.
I was going to say, if Jim will take it and then Beverly can take it back. Like,
are we good?
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Okay,
Yay, so we got it.
Quick word on CareSac, then we'll get started. This is the last commercial part you're going to hear. Hopefully you're familiar with CareSac. If you're not, we're a 100% cloud-based solution for the complete management of the dental practice. And we typically find ourselves working with two types of offices. The first is ambitious. They're having success. They're growing. They see technology as offering a competitive advantage, and they're not sure how to get there. They just need a little bit of help. The second type of practice, unfortunately, they're not having the type of growth. They're typically frustrated and aggravated by managing a multitude of software subscriptions that stack upon their legacy software for things like electronic forms or remote onboarding, or they're just not able to get accurate estimates at the time of treatment, and the revenue cycle is broken because of that. And this sometimes creates sleepless nights for the principals. So if you find yourselves falling into one of those two categories, do us a favor. At the end of the program, we're going to have a quick overview of CareStack before we give the gift card that Teresa will talk about in a moment for being here tonight for Grubhub. So that's it on CareStack. Teresa, I'm going to turn it over to you as our moderator for tonight's program.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Okay, so Beverly, go ahead and advance to your slide and I'll introduce you. One of the...
Go here.
There you go. One of the wonderful things about working with a software company who really believes in education is that they approached me to put together this management series for them. So in addition to tonight's session, you can go onto CareStack's webinar page and you can find the 3 previous sessions that were held. Lynn Leggett talked about team dynamics and how to go from admin to practice manager. And I talked about difficult patient conversations, which is always fun. Rick Garofalo talked about compliance and some of the things that you need to know. And tonight we have Beverly Wilburn talking about how to work with between your referral and your general offices. And this is a conversation that happens every day that I know could be really improved upon. And that's why I called upon Beverly, because she works in a periodontal office and has lots of experience doing this. So she is, I'll read her bio, even though many of you already know her, but you should know all of the accomplishments that she's made because she really has done a lot in her career. Beverly Wilburn is a full-time office manager for Carl Smith DDS, LLC, Periodontics and Implants in Alexandria, Virginia. She's also the owner of Magnificent Consulting, where she trains dental teams on case acceptance and marketing. She has served as an expert witness for the administrative side of dentistry in several multi-million dollar dental malpractice cases. Beverly, look at all these tongue twisters you put in here. She is a lifetime member of ADOM, a 2021 practice manager of distinction. She achieved the highest level for ADOM, which is diplomat, and serves as the executive administrator for the Virginia Society of Periodontitis, Dontists. And they don't have Dontitis, right? So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over here. Maybe, I don't know. They're the worst, right? Some dentists are the worst about that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. Beverly, take it away. And I'll be back with you all at the end because we do have a giveaway for a Grubhub gift certificate since you guys are spending some of your dinner time with us. Go ahead, Bev.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for that wonderful introduction. It's really great to be here. I see a lot of friends have signed up and I really appreciate you guys coming and all of those things. What you guys witnessed already a little bit of was we had a little bit of challenges. We kind of stuck a little bit of technology in right before we started. So sometimes that happens and hopefully it went off a little bit better than it appeared on our end. I'm really happy to be here. Thank everyone for joining tonight. It's really great to see everybody. Thank you, CareStack. Thank you to Odyssey and their partnership together and bringing this Wild World of Management webinar series to life is pretty excellent. Teresa always does such a really good job with introductions. And so as she said, I'm Beverly Wilburn. I actually am the full-time office manager for a periodontal office with 2 locations in Northern Virginia and also in Southern Maryland. So I've been a manager for just over 22 years. I have leadership roles in all sorts of practice types. I started in dentistry a long time ago. I was a marketing director for a multi-specialty group practice. And I managed a couple of locations for a DSO. So a lot of different varying roles all throughout dentistry. My most fulfilling and current role is, my current role actually is serving as a practice manager for a solo practitioner in a private practice setting for perio. And I really have to give a special shout out tonight. Hopefully there's a lot of specialty offices on here. And for those specialty offices, the ones working for periodontists, I'm going to give you a little extra shout out. I believe that the periodontists are the specialist of the specialty dentists. So we believe they're pretty special people, if it's sometimes challenging to work for perio. Because I'm not always a speaker, I don't do this all the time by, life. And it was an honor and blessed to be able to be offered to be here tonight. We can't promise tonight everything will go off without a hitch. So if something crazy does happen, we will, bear with us, just like office managers do and other people do. We're going to make sure that we push through it. And you guys got through COVID and all this stuff for the past couple of years. I'm pretty confident you guys can get through anything. So we'll be good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and advance a couple slides just because we added a couple in, like I said. So we're going to kind of push through those just a little bit, and then we'll get started for what we want to do, what we would like to accomplish. So we have a couple of goals tonight that I really want to talk about. We're talking about, specialty relationships and the relationships between your dental office, general dental offices and specialty offices. Because we have a good mix tonight, we have quite a few attendees on, we have a really good mix, and that's really exciting. So there's probably a reason that you signed up for this webinar. So a lot of times for general offices, it's maybe that you had a breakdown in communication with the specialty office, or maybe you've had to send your patients out of the practice and they don't come back and you're like, what happened to them? Or maybe you're just not sure who or when to refer to. So there's a lot of reasons that we all need to kind of work well together to be able to service our patients. For specialty practices here tonight, you maybe have seen dips or maybe ups and downs in the numbers of referrals that are coming into your office. You may have some difficulty in getting data that you need to properly treat the patients that you do have coming. Or maybe it's that you're just not feeling appreciated in your role in the patient's care, or maybe you feel like you're not meeting the expectations of what the referring office is looking for from you. So whatever it is, having a really good battle plan for how your referrals are set up and how that relationship works is going to set you and your patients on a really good path to better health and wellness, which overall is going to be really great for everybody involved. So now that we kind of understand a little bit about how the referral process works, you guys probably are pretty familiar with that. We want to learn a couple of systems to facilitate that referral process and make sure that we get it kind of in a better movement pattern and we can achieve a lot more success for our patients. So with that being said, we have a couple of goals. I want to talk about assigning the who and the how of specialist communication. It's really important to know who is going to be assigned to that and how that communication should work. We also want to talk a little bit about strengthening the existing referral relationships by knowing what they want. So finding out what that specialty office wants or what that general office wants back is a really good way of making sure that the existing referrals that you do have coming back and forth between the two locations is really strong. And then we want to take some time to identify breakdowns in that patient referral cycle. So we can't help but have breakdowns sometimes. But if we know what they are and we can start to identify some of them and figure out ways to fix them, then we can kind of get through together of how to make that relationship better. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the referral cycle in general. So what is a referral? In definition, a referral is an act of referring someone for consultation, review, or further action. So for us, that means a referral out of our office to, or from the general office to the specialty office. But why do we refer? Like, what are the reasons that we actually refer patients? So sometimes we refer because honestly, truth is, we don't always have to refer. Some general offices will say, I have a dentist here who's really, really great. And we'll talk about this a little bit later as well. But sometimes we have a dentist who says, I'm really good at perio, or I had a really strong perio foundation in school, or I do root canals amazing, or I'm wonderful with children. I really love kids. I want kids to come to my practice. So some of us don't have to refer. Some general dentists don't have to send patients out. They have that in-house, or there's a lot of more, especially since, COVID time, and not that we want to go there, but especially since COVID time and other things, there's a lot more offices are merging and coming together. And that's creating avenues for keeping a lot more stuff in-house. So what we're finding is that some of those referrals are slowing a little bit. And again, we'll talk about that as well, kind of as we go through this. But ultimately, why do we refer? Some just don't want to deal with difficult patients sometimes. Sometimes the root canal is too difficult to deal with, or the removal is too challenging, or they can't get the periodontal disease under control, or maybe the patient has a super complex orthodontic issue that we don't want to deal with. So those are kind of the reasons that typically a patient is referred out. And, sometimes I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but sometimes the patient's just super duper picky and you just really don't want to mess with it. So it's time to just kind of scoot that referral along and get them out of your office, out of you having to deal with them. But chances are everyone's going to come across a point at some point in time where they're going to have to refer to a patient, and they're going to need to work together with other offices to make that a smoother process. It can sometimes be a daunting process. So let's talk a little bit about what an ideal referral cycle looks like. So that way we can see what do we want to see? What is the goal of what we'd like to see? So here's the ideal referral cycle. So in an ideal referral cycle, a patient arrives at your office. Maybe it's a longtime patient, or maybe it's a patient that is the first time that they've ever been there. And the dentist evaluates them and says, okay, we have this challenge and it's not something that I feel comfortable doing. So I'm going to go ahead and make this referral. I work with this guy. I have, worked with him for a long time, down the street, and let's go ahead and I'm going to make a referral to him. He's really great. He takes your insurance, all of those things. So patient goes up to the front desk, gets the referral, the dental assistant or whomever gives them the information. They go off to the office. They meet the specialist. The specialist is absolutely wonderful. And the specialist treats the patient. There's no pain. The patient's out of pain. They're completely comfortable. They, a few months go by or weeks go by, they go back to their general dentist office and they say, oh, thank you so much. That was a great referral. It was wonderful. You guys, I left them a glowing 5-star review. And then what do they do for you? You're so great because you got them out of pain, and they leave you a glowing 5-star review too. So now everybody's happy and everybody is wonderful. So that's kind of what the ideal referral cycle looks like. But for any of us that deal in that or have that challenge of working together with other offices, sometimes we know that that's not always how that referral cycle is going to be. So what we typically get at most moments in time is what we call the what really happens referral cycle. And this slide has so much data on it. And I hesitated putting it in tonight because I said, oh my gosh, it's so much data, but this is really what it looks like. It's like sometimes can be so overwhelming and challenging when you're dealing with other offices and other personalities. And sometimes there's 3 different oral surgeons that you might be dealing with, or sometimes you're not even dealing with the oral surgeon that you sent them to, and it can just become overwhelming. So in the what really happens referral cycle, the dentist typically will evaluate the patient, same thing. Again, either it's a patient that you've been seeing for a long time, or it might be a new patient. The patient comes in, sits down, dentist says hello, gets the exam done and determines that a referral needs to be made. And then after the referral needs to be made, the patient says, well, why can't you just fix it for me? And if you've been in this setting, especially for your patients who've maybe been your patients for 20 years or, a long time, maybe even 5 years, they really want you to just fix it for them. They really don't want to go anywhere else. They really want you to be the one to fix it. So the kind, caring dentist that everybody works for takes an extra 20 minutes explaining that he really can't do what needs to be done. There's 2 hygienists in the hallway, foot tapping, waiting for the dentist to get done explaining to this patient. And the numbness is wearing off on another patient that the dentist is already numbed in room 3. And then the patient is finally released and heads to the admin team, Jennifer. That's where Jennifer comes in. So Jennifer has a new patient on the phone, and she's on hold with an insurance company on the other line because she's got to verify insurance, not for the new patient, but for another patient who has brand new insurance. She's texting tomorrow's confirmations at the same time. And the patient looks at Jennifer and he's standing there and he says, Jennifer, can't you call and schedule this appointment for me? So now she has like 3 phone lines everywhere, all kinds of stuff going on. And of course, Jennifer is such a great employee. But the patient's still asking, well, are they good? And of course, it all goes back to, well, do they take my insurance? And of course, Jennifer is supposed to know exactly what insurance every specialist in the area that would ever be referred to from her office. She has to know every insurance company that every one of them takes. So poor Jennifer. The patient arrives at the specialist finally after Jennifer is so great and does everything she can to release them. And what data do they bring with them? Nothing. They bring absolutely zero data with them. So now here is poor Jennifer, and she gets a call from the great special receptionist at the other office, at the general dentist office, and the receptionist says, I need the data because the patient didn't bring any. So now here's Jennifer again. She sends the referral. She's still got the, insurance company on hold probably, and she still has the other patient, and all of those things are still happening. And many more new patients coming in the door. And so she sends the referral, and she sends the x-rays, which never arrive because they never arrive the first time. X-rays never can make it the first time. So Jennifer will send the x-rays 3 times, but maybe they will finally get them. And then ultimately they will still probably need to take their own x-ray because it's not the angle of the x-ray that was sent from Jennifer's office. And so the specialist office still ends up taking another x-ray anyway. Now, once the patient is seen and treated at the specialty office, maybe that note doesn't get back to the general office. So the note doesn't get there. And now they're wondering, what happened to my patient? So on a slower day, because, Jennifer sometimes has slower days. On a slower day, Jennifer will start working reports and going, what happened to that patient? I wonder what happened. I haven't seen them in a while. Oh, I see. We referred them out to a specialist. Okay, so then they're going to call the patient. Jennifer's going to do such a diligent job calling the patient. And the patient's going to say, oh, well, I went to that specialist and it was good. And I got out of pain and all those things happened. But guess what? I used all my insurance and now I can't have my crown done until next year. So now Jennifer doesn't meet her scheduling goals and all of those things happen. So we feel really sorry for Jennifer, and that's Jennifer. I had to label her forehead because I felt really sorry for her in the scheme of all of the things that she had to do. So how do we fix all of this? How do we get from the what really happens referral cycle to the ideal referral cycle? There's a couple of actions that we can take that are really good actions for offices to do to be able to get there. So let's talk about what that means. So the who is really, really important. And one of the biggest problems that I see happen in practices is no one's really responsible for that referral. When the referral needs to happen coming from the referring office, there isn't any responsibility for it. Who is responsible for that? Does the doctor obviously makes the referral. The assistant sometimes helps get the referral written and get out. Sometimes it's the front desk. Sometimes it's, a lot of different, it kind of depends on who it is. It could be a treatment coordinator. It could be a receptionist. It could be a lot of different people. And a lot of times, as everybody knows, when you have a lot of hands in the basket, in the pot, there's sometimes things can get overstirred and over crazy. So we want to try to make sure that we find out who is going to be responsible for that, and having a really good system of who is going to be responsible for that and how that system is going to work to the specialist. We can smooth out a lot of the wrinkles in the process. It really becomes a helpful thing when there is an identity of someone that is kind of responsible for that. A lot of times in most offices, the admin team is the ones who are left to be the responsible party of sending out that referral. I personally am not a big fan of that. I've seen things happen. As Teresa introduced in the very beginning, I do a lot of legal consulting, and some of the things that have happened throughout the process of me doing that has been where administrative team members have filled out referrals, sometimes incorrectly, and not had the result or not had the signature from the doctor to be able to say, hey, this is exactly what I want referred. And sometimes things happen and don't happen exactly the way they should on the back end. And that can be sometimes a risk management issue. So I'm not the biggest fan of the person who's not chair side or not right in that room when that referral is made, being the one to set the referral. The doctor really should be looking at minimum of all of the referrals that leave their office if they're not the ones personally making it. And as you guys know, you know how this goes. What will happen sometimes is the doctor will make a referral and then they go up to the front, just like they did in the reality situation of how referrals work. And you'll get, well, are they good? And maybe the front office person doesn't like the guy you sent them to, or the girl or the female or that you sent them to. So they'll say, oh no, well, they're okay, but this guy down the street's a little bit better. So sometimes you have to kind of keep that in mind too, is that even though they're the ones making the referral, every referral leaving the office is the sole responsibility of the provider and is the responsibility of the doctor that has made that referral. So doctors always want to make sure, any doctors on tonight want to make sure that you are overseeing that process a little bit, at least by means. In my office, I think a best practice, the way we kind of handle it is once the referral is generated, assistants typically are the ones who generate that referral. And once that referral is generated, there's an initial on it. And I personally, as long as I've been doing this, won't send a referral out of the office unless I see that doctor's initials on the top of that referral saying that it's okay to go, or at least somewhere the doctor taking, some offices don't have any paper and other things like that. And that's great. And we'll talk about that as well. But I think that in a setting where you're sending a referral out, there needs to be some kind of tracking that the doctor has been the one to take the responsibility for that actual referral. Depending on practice size, it's really good for assistants to handle it if they can. I know sometimes in practice sizes, it's a little difficult with, sometimes assistants are a little overwhelmed in some practices, and sometimes the admin team is a little overwhelmed in some practices. So it kind of depends on where you're heavy. You'll have different fluctuations of, we're a little bit heavier on the back end. And in our office, we have a written policy for the physical referral itself. So how that referral tracking works, which in that case, it doesn't matter who's doing it. It just means that somebody's assigned to doing it. So at some points in time, I may say as a manager, okay, front office, right now, you guys need to be the ones creating and generating the referrals because they're too busy in the back to be able to do that. And then sometimes we'll go back and we'll say, okay, assistants, you guys really need to take that role back. So you have to kind of, fluctuate jobs a little bit. Not that cross-training everywhere. I think it's a good thing that people are somewhat cross-trained a little bit in each position. That doesn't mean a front desk person has to go back and assist, but it does mean that they should know some basics of each thing. Back office should know how to answer a phone, other things like that. So setting a system of how that referral gets from point A to point B is really, really important in regards to making sure that the referral is handled and that you can have a good, successful action with those referrals. There's a lot of automated programs today that handle these kinds of things. And I think that's great too. I've seen some that sit on a desk and you push a button and it goes to the place that it needs to go. And, that's fine as long as you know that the mechanics of the inside of that are all set up properly. I've seen some that are completely online. I will say for specialty offices that are accepting referrals, try to get some kind of form on your website. And we'll talk a little bit about electronic referrals in just a little bit. But I think that definitely get something there because it pushes traffic through your website. So just a little slight marketing tip on the side of that as well, in regards to having them go through and fill out, because it helps draw traffic through your site and other things like that. So again, there's a lot of automated programs that will help you with that. Some offices really still like, though, the physical referral. They like to have that physical paper in hand. It also sometimes handing a piece of paper to the patient gives them responsibility over it. So it gives them some responsibility in regards to, okay, I'm taking this from you. If you're sending an email on the back end, which I do advocate for, it can get lost in the shuffle a little bit, but giving that patient that referral and saying, this is what you need to do or where you need to go, gives them a little bit, it's pushing the responsibility a little bit towards the patient, which definitely does need to happen. And I'm sure, a lot of software companies have internal referral things. CareStack, I'm sure, has something very, very well built up into it for some type of referral patterns and, making sure that those referrals can be documented well when they happen. Documentation is super important. It's super important from a liability standpoint as well. especially with perio, but in anything, oral surgery, if anything even seen slight, you refer them for a biopsy or any kind of thing like that, you want to make sure that you have documentation of it. The other thing is, especially endo with pain, you're referring a patient and they've got pain, and the endodontist's job is to hopefully help them get out of pain, which they do a great job at. And so, it is a liability thing to make sure that you've given the patient an option. Even if they choose not to go or choose what to do, you've at least made that call as the provider of care to say, this is what I want you to do. So print referrals, electronic referrals, all of those things, whatever way you get it to them, just make sure that they get it in their hand and have a system of how it's going to happen. Even if you have to write out the steps, the doctor's going to say it. The dental assistant is going to enter it. It's going to go to the front desk. They're going to verify whose insurance takes what or do whatever. However that system is going to be for your practice, you want to make sure that you have a really good system in place and put it in writing. It's important to put those things in writing, however you do it in your office, however the communication works in your office, whether it be by way of, an email or by way of everybody, we write down a policy and everybody signs it, but it should be the referral process should be part of your SOPs. It should be part of your standard operating procedures in your office. I highly recommend having some type of office code for your ledgers or for your procedures that you can pull, like especially in your ledgers. I think Ledger is a great place for it. In my office and in many offices that I help consult with, we teach that if it's in the ledger, it happened. So, sometimes a note can be missed or sometimes other things can be missed, but you rarely miss money or you rarely miss some kind of tracking there. So it's not that you want your ledgers completely clumped up, or your accounting, whatever your accounting software is completely clumped up, but that's the place to use those codes. So set yourself some office codes, have a code for referred to endo, referred to pedo, referred to oral surgery, those kind of things, referred to perio, wherever you're referring, have it. You can also then utilize that to be able to run yourself a quick and easy report to be able to see all the people that you sent out. So if you run the report by procedure code, you have it. So I know a lot of people are like, well, I have this fancy smanchy report that tells me, all of these people that I referred out, and those things are wonderful and great, but your ledger really should be accurate, especially when doctors most of the time, or providers a lot of the time, not all the time, but doctors most of the time they're going to be looking at their day sheets every single day to say, hey, yes, my charges were correct. Yes, this was correct. So the ledger is almost the most accurate thing that you can have in the office. Everything else can have variables of, a note gets missed, something, a claim goes out incorrectly. So all of these other areas that you have sometimes can be not perfect, but your ledger usually is probably pretty close to perfect. So I highly suggest having an office code and definitely using a ledger of some sort and having an office code to be able to track. And then setting aside some time to have an admin person or someone follow up on those referrals, even if it's an hour or two a month. That's a lot of sometimes production that's missed by, let's say you refer out to endo. Let's say you refer 15 patients out to endo and they go out and they have their endo done. That's 15 crowns that might be sitting there not done, or 15 restorative processes that aren't done. So you want to make sure that when you are sending them out that they're returning. And we'll talk a little bit about how that is going to flow when we talk about how we can strengthen those referral relationships. Okay, good. All right, so let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about strengthening the referral relationship. So with every relationship in life, and especially like husbands, wives, kids, employees, all of those, when we love it when people know what we want without us having to ask, and we love it when they give it to us. So for specialists, I have to tell you, just give them what they want. Okay, like give them what they want within reason, and we'll talk about that. But give them what they want. General dentist, tell them what you want. You have to. We need to know. Us specialists need to know. We're not mind readers, and we don't always know exactly what it is that you want from us. We want to help you, and we want to help you help your patients. But sometimes we just need to know what it is kind of that you want us to do. I know one thing that we struggle with a little bit in perio is that sometimes they don't want periodontal treatment. The general dentist doesn't want their patient to have some kind of perio. They want, the patient to have a removal or an implant or something like that. And not that we can always agree. And I have a little tips at the end that we'll talk a little bit about some controversial things that happen between offices. But it's nice to know what it is that your thought process is. It's really nice to know what your thought process is from an endpoint. As specialty offices, maybe not so much pedo. Pedo, they typically go in and we don't see them again until, they're 18 or so. And believe me, there is a really big special shout out to all of you pediatric practices, because that is the probably biggest challenge. I don't know if I would ever be able to do that job, but you guys are great. But you typically kind of take the patient on, and that's a really good thing. And with ortho as well, there you guys kind of have your own treatment plan. But in a lot of things that we're dealing with oral surgery or with perio or with endo, the general dentist is really the quarterback. They're the quarterback of the play. So we kind of want to know what your game plan is before we see them. So if your game plan is, this is what you see and this is what you've discussed with your patient and this is what you guys have talked about and you guys want, we don't want to say something different. We want to be on your team with saying, hey, tell us what it is. Tell us, what the plan is, and let us try to help you get there. So if you're a general dentist and you successfully place implants and you have the right training and you have other thing, I know this is sometimes taboo in a lot of areas of dentistry, but do it. Let your oral surgeons, let your periodontists know that your goal is to place the implant. You have the adequate training and you want to do that. And if you just need some help from them for something else, let them know. There'll be some, that will agree and there'll be some that won't, but letting them know helps you guys decide if you guys are going to be a match made in heaven, if you guys are going to be a good referral marriage. And so if you just say, hey, this is what my plan is, and this is what I want to do, and this is the parts that I want to do, and these are the parts that I want you to take care of, you're not going to have everyone that's going to decide to meet that. Not everybody's going to be able to meet that expectation, but you will find the right one that will, and you'll be able to have a good referral marriage, I like to call that. So send it on the referral, hey, Dr. Jones, extract number 3 and place a bone graft for me. I really want to be the one to place the implant in 3 months or whatever it is. Let them know. So, there's times when, you see some challenges happen where the general dentist will send the patient to the specialist and they will send them for one thing and the patient comes back with a whole mouth of a lot of different things. Or maybe you had a plan with your patient to restore per quadrant and you send them to endo for endo on 28. And now they go and they come back and you're ready to do this crown on tooth number 28. And the patient has had endo on 14 and 3 and 28. Okay, well, maybe those were all things that were happening and maybe those were all things that were a problem, but you really had a plan. And now the patient's out of insurance benefits. They can't do anything else because that's the patient's perception. And you either have to convince them to spend thousands of more dollars. And so sometimes that can be a little challenge in regards to working back and forth. So really communicating very well with your existing referral relationships and what you want and what your desires are for your patients is really important. We need a little more detail sometimes as specialists in regards to what it is that you really want. If you want more data involving the patient that you're not getting from your specialist, tell them, hey, this is the thing that I want to know. And specialists, just listen. Sometimes just listen for what they're telling you. We can all work together in a perfect world if it happens. It's a really good idea for especially like brand new or sometimes even established specialty offices, but really brand new offices that are trying to build relationships with new referral sources to find out how they want to be communicated with. I think that's something that I've seen change in my 22 years of doing this, which is, before they wanted information a certain way. Now they want information a different way. So how do they want it? So what we kind of did, and it's a really good tip to do, I would highly suggest it, and it seems kind of antiquated. Again, I'll use that word, but we have a spreadsheet. And if an office really wants all email and they don't want any mail and they don't want anything else, then we just have their email. We have a little spreadsheet. We know if we're sending it to this doctor, it's alphabetized, it's very easy, and we know where it's going. There are probably some systems in the software that will tell you that. Our software does have a little bit of a system in it. It just isn't exactly at fingertips touch where I like to have it. But softwares nowadays, they're really good with having, I'm sure CareStack has a great option for this as well. But anywhere you have, like, no matter what it is, whatever referral source it is, whether it's a doctor or whether it's a, newspaper or whatever it is, you can make a couple contact notes about that in there somewhere, so that you kind of know what they want. So for instance, in ours, we might have Dr. Johnson only likes mail, or, only likes, still has paper charts, all of those things, so that you know how you're going to be sending that data to that doctor. It's really important. So if we have a doctor, for my practice, obviously I'm perio, but if we have a doctor who's a super conservative treatment planner, I'm going to have a note in that, like, doctor's super conservative treatment planner. He likes to go one thing at a time with his patients. And here's the thing, if you're receiving a patient from a doctor like that, that doctor trusts you. So you see his patients, and his patients have trusted him enough to say, I'm going to really listen to him, and I'm going to go wherever. So even if sometimes you see some things that you might not necessarily, as a specialist, might not say, okay, that's not exactly how I would do things, that doctor already has that respect with that patient and already has that relationship, and they have a plan. So work towards their plan, and they're getting, their plan getting handled the way that it needs to be handled. We make notes on our patients like that. We make notes on our hygiene patients, patient's daughter getting married next month or whatever's happening. And so when the patient comes back, we sit them back in the chair and we say, oh, how'd your daughter's wedding go? When we saw them 3 months, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. Those same things can happen with your referral sources. Your referral sources are they're people, just like they are anything else. So knowing a little bit about, things that might be important to them. Maybe they don't want donuts. Maybe they want, a CPR class, or maybe they want, different things. There's a lot of benefits to knowing a little bit about them. Not that you have to be besties, and not that you have to be, talking to them all the time, because they don't want you in their face all the time either, but because that's a hindrance to them sometimes. But knowing a little bit about them and making notes of that, and having that data to know what they want and when they want it. Specialists, you just need to listen, and general dentists, you just need to tell us, just tell us what you want, and we'll do our best to try to make it work. And sometimes that gets lost in translation in the communication. But I think if you know a little bit together, then about each other, then it will work out in the end. Good. So let's talk a little bit about breakdowns. What happens when we have some breakdowns? We have a couple of we can try to please everyone. We can do everything right. We can see their patients timely, quickly, not charge them a lot, make them happy, make them smile, come back raving, whatever. There's still, just like every good marriage sometimes has an argument, there's still going to be some kind of breakdowns at some point. And so how do we fix those? What do? We don't want to end in a referral divorce. We want to get through them, and we want to have a happy referral marriage. So what can we do to solve that? First, we have to remember that patients just come between us. It's the patient's fault. It's not anybody else's fault. It's the patients. They're the ones coming between us. So a lot of times that, patients are always the problem. If all of us could just work all of our days without patients, everything would be wonderful and we'd all be happy and rosy. But unfortunately, we can't do that. So, but patients will play you against each other. It's not necessarily the greatest thing, but they do it. And sometimes we take more respect in what the patient says versus us just communicating together. And I think kind of getting around that and communicating doctor to doctor or office to office as often as possible is really the solution to that. We take a little bit, and not that we all, 99% of our patients are wonderful, but we have those patients who are going to do that. I know you guys have heard it. It happens all the time. From a specialty standpoint, the patient will come in, they'll sit down in the chair. Even the ones that come from the wonderful office that has the referral and the x-rays and everything's perfect, and they sit down and they're like, I don't know why I'm here. My doctor didn't tell me anything at all. He just wants me to be seen to rule out any issues. My teeth are totally fine. Everything's good. I don't even know why he referred me. So the chart notes, once you finally ask the patient, okay, well, I'm going to call the doctor and I'm going to communicate with them directly. And so you pick up the phone and you call and they say, we've been referring him to a periodontist since 2015. So it's a lot different story sometimes once they get on the phone with the between the two offices. And what you find sometimes is that though most of our patients are really, really wonderful, they also sometimes forget. They don't remember everything that they were told, or maybe it went in one ear and out the other. And the specialist is looking at this patient and saying, they didn't tell this patient anything. And they're looking at a mouth of whatever, or they're looking at this huge endo abscess, or they're looking at wisdom teeth that are, already pushing everything out of the way. And they're saying, okay, here we go. I can't believe they didn't tell him anything. And so now the specialist is frustrated, the general dentist is frustrated, and the patient's the one coming in the middle. So what do we do about it? We pick up the phone and we call and we find out what the situation is. Is this the first referral? Is this the 8th referral? Is it, you can't allow the communication between the patient and you come between the two professionals having a conversation. And that doesn't always have to be the doctor. I do like to accentuate that as well, because doctors are busy, and so are we though. So are we. Assistants are busy. Admin teams are busy. Everybody's busy. So you don't want this to be something that's going to hinder your day. But maybe, if you have an office that you work with a lot of time or very, very often, take, 10, 15 minutes a week and run through a couple patients. You don't always have to try to help every patient right then and there. Is it a good idea to not let things sit? Of course, but you can table some things, especially if you're looking at something that doesn't make any sense to you. So you have a patient coming in saying, oh, I didn't know what was going on. Endo and oral surgery, we don't see this as much because typically there's pain involved with those. So when there's pain, the patient usually knows why they're there. There's some kind of pain, and their job is to get them out of pain. So they always know why they're there. But a lot of times we do see it quite a bit in perio when, the patient either says, oh, haven't been referred, or, not really sure what's going on there. We also see sometimes where the patient will come in and the referral is over a year old, or it's very, very old referral or dated referral. And again, same thing, pick up the phone and call. It's about having that communication between them and not allowing the patients to come between you and, not being able to come between you two together. All right, good. So a couple of pro tips for winning over specialty referral relationships. And some of these things have a little bit of a controversial side. So I typically like to preface it with that. We talked a lot tonight about kind of calling, making sure that you're calling your referrals, making sure that you guys are communicating with your other offices together, having a who, having a how, having a system set in place for making sure that those referrals work really well. Some of the things that we like to think about in pro tips is, so one thing that can be a little bit challenging is sometimes you might have a really good referral source that you work really well with, and the general dentist works really well with that specialist, but that specialist maybe doesn't take insurance, or maybe there's some patients say, I don't necessarily want to go because they don't take my insurance, or they don't do this, that, and the other. Well, you have to think about it the same as being in each other's shoes. You don't want every single patient that comes to you only to come to you based on your insurance plan or their insurance plan. You want the patients that want to come to you because you're good at what you do. And so I always say, refer to the best and let the patient make their own decision if they choose something else. Refer to that person that you have the best relationship with, refer to the person that you work well with, refer to the person that gets you the data and does what you ask them to, and have a winning relationship like that. That doesn't mean the patient, it's not like medical sometimes where the HMO doctor gives the patient the referral and they have to go to that doctor. Now, I will say sometimes with Surprise Act and other things like that, there may be some challenges with this, but refer to who you feel is best to handle your patient. And if the patient sways from that, then that's on the patient, not on anybody else. But you've done the best thing that you can for your patient. So always refer to whoever you think is best. The second thing is referrals can work both ways. So a lot of specialists nowadays are really doing a lot of specialty marketing. They are, marketing to the public directly, and they're getting patients in that are, they're getting patients in the door that have never been to a general office. I know we probably get in a perio office, and maybe sometimes an endo, because they search tooth pain on the internet or whatever it is, or wisdom teeth. Some of them know that it's their wisdom teeth happening, so they'll search wisdom teeth. And so typically I say the referrals can work both directions. So if the referral is coming, if the specialist is getting the referral first, you should also have a network of dentists that you work with to be able to send those patients back to them. You should have somebody that you work with, somebody that you trust, somebody that you like, to be able to see those patients that you are able to take, that you guys can take care of together. And how would that feel as a general dentist to receive a referral from a specialist when the specialist says, wow, I have patients in perio that call us sometimes who say, oh my goodness, I moved to this town and my dad was a dentist a long time ago, and he told me to call the local periodontist and find out who the good guys are, or call the local endodontist and find out who does the best crowns, or, whatever. So you'd be surprised at having that. So that's one other thing that I say. Send to the ones you like. Make sure that you work together with your specialty offices, communicate well, and make sure that we have a really good flow of traffic between the two locations, and that will help your patients out along the way. Some other things that we find is sometimes people don't like the team. They really like the dentist, but they really dislike the team. So, you have to, sometimes that's a barrier. That can be a challenge and a barrier to where the referral is going to go. So, I think training your teams, making sure that you get your teams trained really well, and making sure that they're able to help handle those referrals together. And if it's a communication issue or something, specialty teams, you need to do what you can to make sure that you're making those other people happy. They're busy too, and you're busy as well, yes, but you're calling them and you're asking for their time, in getting, especially when you need data or other things like that. So I definitely say to make sure that keep that in mind, is that teams can get along better together. Take them out, do some things, maybe help them with things. Another pro tip is making sure that, it's more than donuts. We say that all the time. That sounds kind of cliche, but it is more than donuts. It is, find out what they want. Ask them what they want. What do they want for their, gifts? Do they want, sweets? Do they want cheesecake? Or do they want you to maybe pay for a CPR class for them? Hire somebody that is trained in CPR to come in and give them CPR. Maybe all their dental assistants need, training for something for CE. Purchase them some CE, do those kind of things. So those are some tips for kind of winning over specialty relationships in regards to how we can win our referrals, and how we can make sure and listen. I think listening is probably the biggest, most important one. Listen to what they ask for and try your best to give them what they want in both directions. I think that as two offices together, we don't listen enough to each other, and we definitely can. Help train specialty offices, help train somebody. These general offices in this time of right now, after everything we just went through in the last 2 years, they are stressed out, new employees, all these things that don't know any of it. What if you went over there and said, hey, I'm going to help with this and I'm going to teach you this, or call me, I'll be your resource. So networking together to do those things is really, really helpful in winning over the specialty referral relationships. All right, good. Q&A. So we left some time for some Q&A because I don't know about you guys, but I typically tend to learn best when I am able to hear from my peers and ask questions and get questions to answers that I think are really important. And so if some people do have questions, hopefully we have some questions in the chat box. I see some people are raising their hands. So I think Teresa is going to help moderate this because I can't see all of those things, and that would be really, really super helpful.
Sure. Yeah. No, I am. I'm really thrilled with this, and I actually have some questions for you. As the questions come in, I'll definitely ask them here. But one thing I was wondering is, what's a really good relationship between the managers of these offices? What does that look like? Because you talked a lot about reaching out as an office as a whole, but is there something that managers could be doing, manager to manager, to make that better?
Yes, absolutely. So you should know your managers. You should have small networking groups. I know, obviously, I'm a diplomat for, American Association of Dental Office Managers, which obviously I'm a big advocate of. If you have local chapters or you have other things, networking, connecting there is just as important as doctors going and networking CE at other places. But even if it's not ADOM, even if it's a small group of managers that you work closely with, or you should have resources and you should have things. And together to be able to network together, go to dinner, or even if you are seeing a challenge where you're having, maybe one office is having some challenge working with a specialty office that they've worked with for years. Maybe that specialty office has brand new employees and they don't know what the heck they're doing. So you definitely need to network together, and you should be able to pick up the phone and call. I know with, many of our referral sources, I know the managers at those offices. So if there's a problem, I pick up the phone, I call. Sometimes it's the problem on my end. I have to be willing to look at that. And sometimes it's the problem on their end. And I hope that they're as open to looking at it as we are. But the managers definitely need to connect. And there's a lot. I kind of talked a little bit about this earlier in regards to how it doesn't always have to be doctor to doctor, the communication. If there's something where you're having a challenge that a patient is bringing something up and addressing something that sounds kind of funny and you're not really sure what's going on, then the two managers can talk. The doctors don't always have time to do that. So, the two managers, they've usually been around the block a little bit and can kind of get to the bottom of it.
One of the biggest issues I know, teaching insurance the way I do, one of the big issues that I hear from general offices is that the specialist office never let us know when they've blown out the maximum, the yearly benefit. So is that something, I know you do it, Beverly, just because I know you, but is that something you recommend to other offices to kind of give a heads up, what's going on? We're going to actually use up a certain amount of their maximum. Just want to let you know about this. Is that good practice? Has that blown up on you? What do you feel about that?
So I think it would be a great thing to do if there's time to do it. I think that would be really, really good. Unfortunately, I don't get to see it as often from that aspect of it. Everybody knows when they send them out for perio, they're blowing out the maximum. So they know they're done. So, but there are certain things like if they're sent out for endo or something like that. But I do think on the flip side of that is sometimes offices don't always look at that either. They don't think about that. So they'll go into a presentation with presenting something from an insurance standpoint of here's what you have left, and they've forgotten that the patient has gone somewhere else, or they have forgotten whatever. So I think turning that around and just basing it on, the insurance is always the one to blame. So always, not giving them enough money or other things like that is pretty helppful. But I think that it would be a very good thing to do if, and actually somebody mentioned it, and her name escapes me right now. And I really wish that I remembered her name because I probably should have written it down. She had mentioned in one of the groups, because I actually put some feelers out to the groups before, we hosted this tonight, and said to a couple of the groups that I'm in, because I thought, hey, there's got to be some real world, real time challenges, right, that people are facing. And if we can address some of those throughout this webinar, that would be a really good thing. And that was one of the things that came up. And she said it would be really nice to have that. And I was like, I love that idea. So I think that other people are on that same page with you, Teresa, in regards to thinking about, hey, maybe if I say or have a little note, maybe it goes back with the letter, if the specialist is sending back the letter, hey, we used XYZ in insurance dollars. I don't necessarily think it's something we could do all the time because of a time, and sometimes we don't even have the claim back by the time they're ready to go back. But I definitely think that would be a huge added value to somebody, and somebody would, a general office would really think, hey, maybe I need to send more referrals to that guy.
Right. Oh, I would appreciate that very much, like knowing that information. It just helps the conversation. Roseanne mentions in the chat, we put flags on all of our referrals so we can check maximum. So there's another person out there that's doing that. Beverly, why don't you go ahead and let them know how to get in touch with you, and then we'll go ahead and wind up tonight.
Absolutely. So I've put CareStack's information in Teresa's website at the top as well. You can reach me through my website. I run a couple of groups on Facebook myself. So these are two of my groups, and please feel free to join and connect. I'm usually pretty excited find me somewhere on social media at all hours of the day or night. And obviously my cell phone, all of my websites, you can definitely don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out through whatever means possible. And I'm usually always going to answer you, give you some advice, whether you want it or not. And I really, really appreciate you guys hosting.
Thank you so much, Beverly. This has been great.
Yeah,
I
Beverly,
love
thank you.
Yeah, this is good. Thanks so much.